Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to say Brak Yahweh, Brak Yahushai, Brak Yahweh, Brak Yahushai, Brak Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Waha, Rakha Kadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone. Peace and blessings to full black. Younger brother here, Shema Shawan, and we're just going to get right into it. German submarine sinks Lusatania, history.com. What I want to go into today is the sinking of the Lusatania, and basically how these devils made an entire propaganda campaign about it, and just some basic history points. As we know, this goes on during the time of World War I, from 1914 to 1918, which you really want to say it ended in 1919 with the Treaty of Versailles. You know, that was really the complete end of the matter, which really makes it really makes it 5 years when you break it down in the scriptures. So we're just gonna jump right into it. On the afternoon of May 7th, 1915, the British ocean liner Lusatania is torpedoed without warning by a German submarine off the south coast of Ireland. It's gonna explain more, but that word Lusatania, it goes back to an ancient Iberian Roman province located where modern Portugal, south of the Douro River, and part of western Spain. It was named after the Lusitani people, and they call it Indo-European people, but I think these guys are Japhites. You know, they kind of seems like they go back before Esau took over the Roman Empire. So I personally think these guys are Japhites, just for looking at it off the surface level. Like, you know, obviously you'd have to really dig into these people, you know, to understand and see what's going on here. But you know, that's what I think. You know, I'm not taking responsibility if I'm wrong, because I'm not gonna look into every single thing. But the point is, Lusitania is Latin, right? This shows that this is America, NATO, and the EU. You know, those nations, they are the Roman Empire coming back. That is Edomite rulership coming back, because they use a Latin word here. These Edomites. So that just kind of proves it, you know. I just wanted to bring that out real quick. Within 20 minutes, the vessel sank into the Celtic Sea. Of 1,959 passengers and crew, 1,198 people were drowned, including 128 Americans. The attack aroused considerable indignation in the United States. Fucking bullshit, which we're going to get to an article that's going to explain it a little bit better. This is just a light summary, because it was really gradual, but of course, what can you expect from a summary, right? And they kind of bungled it, you know. Personally, I would have just gotten rid of this summary, because this is not really doing the history justice by just fucking compressing the information like that. You know what I mean? But Germany defended the action, noting that it had issued warnings of its attack to attack all ships, neutral or otherwise, that entered the war zone around Britain. So Germany already had warnings out saying that, hey, we're going to attack any ships that enter the war zone around Britain. You know, we're going to get another piece of information that's going to shed some light on this, all right, on these devils, man, and how they get down. So this is Forbes.com. Another thing. This is written by Doug Bandow. You know, I really looked into this guy, some college writer or some shit. He seems to talk about this a lot. Lusitania, sailing and sinking the RMS Lusitania, essentially allying America into war. You know, which that's what America does. You know, when these devils, they're deceivers, they're liars, they lie, and they bring themselves into wars, and they say that they're really about peace, like wars are smooth and brother, but war was in their heart. You know, America claims to be all about peace, but it's about war. Which I know that's really going to the your brothers use that to go into the Native Americans, but just on the whole, on a general level, that's just the kind of time that they move on. But there's a little bit more reading, and then we're gonna move on to the scriptures, and then I'm gonna close off because it is late and I do have to do some reading before I go to bed. I would like to read some Proverbs, because Proverbs build your character. So it's gonna be Proverbs, maybe some Revelation, maybe some other things. You know, Washington took a very different attitude toward the U-boat campaign. The Imperial German government sponsored newspaper ads warning Americans against traveling on British liners. The Standard Notice ran directly under Carnot's ad for the Lusatania, listing its May 1st departure. So that ties into what we read before about that war zone around Britain. But that didn't stop the foolhardy from booking passage. Despite reports of nearby subs and destroyers based nearby, the Royal Navy sent no escort for Lusitania as the ship neared the British Isles. So he did that shit on purpose, just to let him die, man. He let him die. It's the book of Proverbs 29, verse 2. When the righteous in their authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear fall, the people mourn. As we know, the wicked are currently in rulership. Alright, and that's why, bullshit like this can pass through. And of course, people are mourning about this. You got certain Edomites like this guy, he's talking about it. It's like, this is some bullshit. And you got certain, other articles that talked about the Lusatania thing and said this is some bullshit. They basically lied, and they basically manipulated the situation. That's what Edomites do, man. They're called the Board of Wickedness for a reason. Okay? So, yeah. We're in rulership. The people are going to rejoice. We're not going to have, bullshit like this, I think it's Isaiah, the 2nd chapter says that, I'm not going to read it, but I'm just going to quote it, because, here we go. There we go. They shall beat their swords to plowshares and the spears to pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift the sword against nation. Neither shall they learn war anymore. So there's not going to be any more war, right, when we have our kingdom, man. When the Israelite rulership is set up on the planet Earth. So people are going to rejoice. These other nations are going to rejoice. And of course, at the 1,000-year period, Esau ain't going to exist no more. He's going to be exterminated. Obadiah 1:18. Very great stuff. You should go read it. So yeah. Where was I? So basically, the Imperial German government puts out warnings. If you enter this war zone, we're gonna fuck you up. The British government. Well, not really the British government. Well, yeah, the British government. They didn't send any escorts for the Lusitania. When it went off to the British Isles, and America made warnings, and people got on the fucking ship anyway. Off Ireland's coast, a vessel went down after a single torpedo hit. The coup de grace apparently was a secondary explosion. Lusitania's cargo of munitions, including 4.2 million rounds of rifle cartridges declared, and probably much more undeclared. So they had weapons on it. So they say it was an unprovoked attack, right? As they say here, as you read in the first thing from history.com, torpedo without warning. But that's what it's supposed to. That's a convention of war. You have missiles and weapons. It's supposed to let you go. Come on. And perhaps much more undeclared. So there's much more than just that. Even to this day, when they do digs and shit like that, like there's certain shit that they haven't found that's in there in the wreckage. Among the 1,198 dead were 120 Americans who had knowingly put their lives in danger. Kind of sounds like something familiar, right? With this whole thing in the construction cranes area. People going down there. Apparently people going down there. I don't know if maybe they did, I haven't really looked into it. Maybe they didn't. I don't really give I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna be honest. I don't give a fuck. But volunteers saying, "Oh, I'm gonna go fight there," like, you're putting yourself in danger. You're a fucking idiot. There was a political firestorm in the United States, but the flames subsided short of Churchill's desired declaration of war. Still, the president demanded strict accountability for the German U-boat campaign. His position was frankly absurd. Americans should be able to safely travel on armed vessels of a belligerent power carrying munitions through a war zone. See, he sounds kind of stupid, right? But that's what America tried to put out. If one American set foot on a boat full of munitions, the Germans should allow it to sail to Britain unmolested, so the bullets and shells could be used to kill German soldiers. See how that doesn't make any sense? See how they're the wicked, right? Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan. This also, makes me think of that scripture that caused a ton to fall upon himself, because this guy wrote this article is an Edomite. You know, he's more than likely an Edomite. Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan argued that the British conduct was similar to putting women and children in front of an army, and soon resigned in frustration at Wilson's bias. Woodrow Wilson. The president eventually issued a de facto ultimatum which called Berlin to suspend attacks on liners and limit attacks on neutral vessels. As the war dragged on, however, with stalemate on the trench-raided Western Front and the British blockade imposing an abrogated burden, Berlin, tired of placating Washington, which the British blockaded Germany during World War One. The blockade of Germany. You can go read it yourself if you want to get more info. Where was I? Oh yeah, there we go. Berlin, tired of placating Washington with his navy and promising promising dramatic results in January 1917, the Kaiser Wilhelm II, approved resumption of submarine warfare. That action gave Wilson the pretext for war he had long desired. Since touched by megalomania, he desired to reorder the entire globe. Alright, so that gave Wilson the pretext for war that he wanted. So Kaiser William II said, "Alright, I'm tired of placating this, and following what you're telling me to do. I'm gonna start shooting down those submarines of Slovakia. I'm gonna start, commit submarine warfare again. I'm gonna start shooting shit down again." And that of course gave Woodrow Wilson his excuse to enter the war, because he would have looked like a fucking idiot. His people died, Americans died, because they went on a fucking, really what is a military ship. It has weapons on it. It's really a ship carrying military weapons, military gear, and they died sailing in a war zone. So, once again, man, these are devils, man. So first I want to go into how scriptures talk about World War One. So it's a lot for a bit of reading, but if you can't stand me read history, and you want to watch something else, go ahead. I don't give two fucks. I'm just here to bring out certain information for the hopeful lack and to enrich their learning. Which really I could have read a lot more, but I'm not doing that today. Revelation chapter 9, verse 1, the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and into him was given the key of the bottomless pit. The fifth angel is referring to the first of the last three woes. The bottomless pit is Europe, because there's a lack of natural resources there. The beast, originally the Roman Empire, which is now NATO, the EU, and the US. The Neo-Roman Empire came out of Europe, further proving that the bottomless pit is referring to Europe. Alright, and that one obviously goes back to Revelation chapter 20, verse 1. And I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having to keep the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. I believe that was the apostle Ramlah said this is Yahweh Shai. And that great chain, of course, represents slavery. And he laid hold of the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Okay, so once again, that chain represents Europe. We're actually going to come back to this. Actually, we'll go into it right now since we're here, right? It just makes sense, because then it's going to lead back to World War One, right? And laid on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So laid hold, the Israelites put the Edomites in subjection. The dragon is the pagan Roman Empire. 1,000 years is the 1,000 period starting around the reign of Constantine the Great, circa 325 AD. During this period of time, the Edomites were enslaved under Israel. Exactly. Now that's where you get that whole Holy Roman Empire. You get the whole get jakes, with the crosses, the cross, the Iron Cross Knights and Holy Cross Knights and various names like that. And you get Jake rulership in Europe, and they had Edomites in subjection, slavery, for 1,000-year period. And we're gonna go more into it from from around 325 AD circa to around the 1300s, which is when the Renaissance started to kick in. You know, and cast him to the bottomless pit and shut him up. Well, really around the 1400s, these brothers say 1300s, 1400s, circa. And cast him to the bottomless pit, shut him up, and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more till 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and that he must be loosed a little season. So loose little season for the time of the Renaissance around the 1400s. So around that time period is when Esau, Renaissance meaning rebirth, started to get his rulership back. And remember, set a seal upon that he should deceive the nations no more. These Edomites just couldn't get it together, man. They couldn't, bound up and get themselves together and deceive the nations no more. They were put down into subjection, man. All right, so that means if they were shut up and they couldn't deceive the nations no more, that means that a natural attribute of this people is that they're deceitful or deceptive, which they are, as we just proved with this Lusatania thing, and basically how the United States spended it and made a propaganda campaign about it. Back to Revelation chapter 9, verse 2. And he opened the mouth, and he opened the bottomless pit, and there rose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the reason of the smoke of the pit. Alright, so this is referring to World War I. Its weapons and all the smoke and that war, the battles. And they came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth had power. So locusts, World War I fighter jets, the scorpions tail guns, John likened the jets to locusts because he did not know what he was seeing. They were like locusts, and you can look up those fighter jets for yourself. They kind of got that kind of like look to them, where they kind of look like locusts. You know what I mean? Verse 4. So once again, this is proving that we're reading here, World War I is written in the scriptures, and the rest I don't really need to read. I do want to touch on this. In Revelation to the 9 verse 11, he had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. Now, when you look at the word angel, it doesn't always mean like a literal angel, right? We know the bottomless pit is Europe, right? It doesn't always mean a literal angel, okay? Angel is a messenger or an envoy or just someone sent, okay? One who is sent, okay? So, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, which means destroyer, but in the Greek tongue has his name Apollyon, which means destroyer or destruction, which he brought a lot of destruction, of course. World War I was a very destructive war. Was like 20 million. That was, of course, the whole thing was manipulated. How many died in World War One? So they say 20 million deaths and 21 million wounded. Which this goes to here about the wounded and how the people couldn't die and things like that in Revelation the 9th. So yeah, angel doesn't always mean a literal angel. It can be a person. Like this one proves that it's talking about a person. You have other scriptures like I believe with John, they call him an angel. You look at that word like messenger or something like that. Different scriptures that show you that messenger, that an angel is not a literal like angel. It could also be people, Whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek hath his name Apollyon. Okay, so the king/angel, the bottomless pit, Kaiser Wilhelm, Abaddon, Apollyon, mean destruction. So that's what it is, man. That was a very destructive war. As I said, verse 12, one war is past, and behold, there come two wars more hereafter. So one war is past, so war means destruction. There have been so far too many destructions. I'm talking about the world wars, and the third is prophesied. There's many different scriptures that go into that. Joel 3, the brother has certain scriptures here. They have it's used to apply to Mark 13:35 and 2 Ezra 9:1. I measure not the time diligently. We know about that one. So World War III is coming, you know, but of course, before World War III comes, you need to have the poker chip. So we can deduce that the third destructive world war is on the horizon. At this point in history, however, only one world war had been fought. Okay, because that's what he's seeing right now. In that point in history, what he's watching, only one world war. But in our time, which we know, living afterwards, there's been two world wars. There's been World War One, there's been World War Two, which World War One led into World War Two. Versailles Treaty and other shit that happened, I don't really give a fuck. So, and I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, but I basically read Revelation the 20th already. So we're gonna bring out one last precept, and we are going to be done. Okay, and then it's gonna be reading. Or I may actually set up some things for camp. I'll figure it out. I might set up some things for camp because I got a camp tomorrow, and I don't really have any news articles or thing to talk about, so I'll find something and I'll bring it out. I already got some precepts I've been thinking about, like that one silly woman laden with sins, and some other ones that I was thinking about, and it's always good to have notes because now I can see the precepts that I made for other videos. And I'll be like, okay, well, I can just take those precepts and use them for camp. Sometimes this is for verse 1. Hear my voice, O Yahweh, and my prayer preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Alright? And to break down enemy, all nations, primarily the Edomites. Exactly. Psalm 83. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity. Secret counsel of the wicked, going into the illuminated ones. Okay? Should go into how they're false lights. They claim to be they claim to be a light to the world, bringing knowledge and wisdom and all that bullshit. Alright, but really they bring in fucking wickedness. We're the real light bearers. And that goes into this one here, which I'm certain the brother's got to break down. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Of course, you read Isaiah 14, it's all going about, these Edomites, man, being taken from their rulership. When you really, go into it, you could tie it into scriptures in Obadiah, how Babylon is being destroyed here, Isaiah 14. These Edomites, they lost their power structure, man. It's already written, we just gotta play it out, So I just kind of comb through it real quick. We're not going to get into the whole thing, but these Edomites, they're going to lose their power, man. They're done. Lucifer is not a reference to the spiritual demon Satan, but rather Esau, known today as a so-called white man, nor is it a reference to fallen angels. And the brother got some precepts here, Sirach 16, 26 to 28, and Isaiah, and Psalm 103 and 20. Gun. I'm not going to go into that, but it seems what he's going into, the angels, obviously I can break that down. Angels don't sin, man. The angels don't sin, so that can't be talking about little angels. Also, when you go into scriptures like Jude, the first chapter, the angels have left their first estate. That's just going into us, man, sons of God who sinned and went off, and we were put in these bodies, these corruptible bodies, man, these chains of darkness on these fleshly bodies. So that's what that's going into. And that goes back to Genesis, the 6th, Genesis, all over Genesis, Romans 8, like in different precepts, man. Let's go back into this. Psalm 64 verse 3, whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot the arrows, even better words. And that goes into Esau's propaganda. So basically, that's pretty much it for this. So this is an example of Psalm 64 and 3, their propaganda. The verse 4 and 5 is really talking about, how they, use their propaganda on us, the hopeful elect, saying that, making all kinds of lies about us, saying that we're murderers or killers, that we're crazy, Another bullshit, which are false claims. Okay, it's not true. All right, it's not fucking true. But I'm done. Shalom.